like the story of the young wastrel monk, and I think it's just a lovely tale and the way it shows that transformation. But yeah, if you've questions about it, definitely head down to the experts at the Buddha Center.
In other texts, the Buddha says that if one has only compassion for the sufferings of other living beings, then in due course all other virtues, all other spiritual qualities and attainments, even enlightenment itself, will follow. This is illustrated by a very moving story from Japan. We are told there was a young man who was a great wastrel. After running through all his money and having a good time, he became thoroughly disgusted with everything, including himself. In this mood, he decided that there was only one thing he could do, and that was to enter the Zen monastery and become a monk. This was his last resort. He didn't really want to become a monk, but there was nothing else left for him. So along to the Zen monastery he went. Maybe he knelt outside in the snow for 3 days, in the way we are told applicants have to kneel. In any event, the abbot agreed to see him. The abbot was a grim old soul. He listened to what the young man had to say, himself not saying very much, but when the young man had told him everything, he said, well, is there anything you are good at? The young man thought, and finally said, Yes, I'm not so bad at chess. So the abbot called his attendant and told him to fetch a certain monk. The monk came. He was an old man and had been a monk for many years. Then the abbot said to the attendant, Bring my sword. So the sword was brought and placed before the abbot. The abbot then said to the young man and the old monk, You two will now play a game of chess. Whoever loses, I will cut off his head with this sword. They looked at him, and they saw what he meant. So the young man made his first move. The old monk, who was not a bad player, made his. The young man made his next move. The old monk made his. After a little while, the young man felt the perspiration pouring down his back and trickling over his heels. So he concentrated. He put everything he had into that game and managed to beat back the old monk's attack. Then he drew a great breath of relief. The game isn't going too badly. But just then, when he was sure he would win, he looked up and he saw the face of that old monk. As I have said, he was an old man and had been a monk for many years, maybe 20 or 30 or even 40 years. He had undergone much suffering, had performed many austerities. He had meditated very much. His face was thin and worn and solemn. The young man suddenly thought, I have been an absolute wastrel. My life is no use to anybody. This monk has led such a good life, and now he is going to have to die. So a great wave of compassion came over him. He felt intensely sorry for the old monk, just sitting there and playing this game in obedience to the abbot's command, and now being beaten and soon to have to die. A tremendous compassion welled up in the young man's heart, and he thought, I can't allow this. So he deliberately made a false move. The monk made a move. The young man deliberately made another false move, and it was clear that he was losing, and was unable to retrieve his position. But suddenly the abbot upset the board, saying, No one has won, and no one has lost. Then to the young man he said, You have learned 2 things today, concentration and compassion. Since you have learned compassion, you'll do. Like the Mahayana Sutras, this story teaches that all that is needed is compassion. The young man had led such a wretched, wasteful life, but since he was capable of compassion, there was hope for him. He was even ready to give up his own life rather than let the monk sacrifice his. There was so much compassion deep down in the heart of this apparently worthless man. The abbot saw all this. He thought, We've got a budding bodhisattva here, and acted accordingly.